In the northeastern reaches of China, the Byzantine domes of St. Sophia's Cathedral rise above Harbin skyline, serving as an architectural testament to the region's complex cultural history. This Russian Orthodox structure, now transformed into a museum, stands amid winter ice sculptures that draw visitors from across the globe. The cathedral embodies what I consider one of the most compelling frameworks for understanding world history, the concept of Inner Eurasia, a vast continental system that bridges Siberian expanses, Mongolian steppes, Chinese frontiers, and Russian territories. The emergence of history's most extensive empires from this singular geographic matrix presents a profound historical puzzle. Consider the extraordinary phenomenon of the Mongols, a population of perhaps 1 million souls who succeeded in establishing dominion over most of the known medieval world. This pattern of world historical significance, emanating from the Eurasian interior, demands serious scholarship and your attention today. I'm Madeline Rose Jones, and I study history, literature, and culture. Welcome to Snowy Fictions. Inner Eurasia represents something more sophisticated than conventional geographic designation. Unlike established regional constructs such as the Middle East or Southeast Asia, Inner Eurasia functions as an analytical framework, a methodological lens that reveals historical patterns otherwise obscured by traditional national or civilizational boundaries. The spatial dimensions of Inner Eurasia encompass an extraordinary continental expanse. One could theoretically travel from the Hungarian plains to Manchuria, approximately 8,000 kilometers, encountering no obvious geographical barriers outside of borders. This continuity of terrain, characterized by grasslands, forests, and deserts, constitutes the world's most extensive area of uninterrupted land. While boundaries remain necessarily fluid, Inner Eurasia generally extends from Moldova and Ukraine to its western reaches to Mongolia in the east, from Siberian lands in the north to the prairies of Iran and Afghanistan in the south. This territory incorporates Central Asia in its entirety, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, alongside Tibet, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, and Manchuria. We are discussing approximately 40% of the Eurasian continental mass. The defining characteristics of Inner Eurasia transcend mere geographical scale. The region's distinctive environmental parameters have fundamentally shaped historical development. This landscape of extremes presents summer heat and winter cold of remarkable intensity. Certain places in Siberia experience temperature variations exceeding 100 degrees Celsius between seasons, the planet's most dramatic thermal differences. Precipitation remains minimal across vast areas, typically below 50 centimeters annually, creating conditions unsuitable for consistent agricultural production. These environmental constraints generated what I consider a unique civilizational laboratory. While societies in China, India, the Middle East, and Europe developed through intense agricultural systems, Inner Eurasia demanded alternative adaptive strategies. The historian David Christian, whose pioneering work established Inner Eurasia as a coherent field of study, identifies 5 principal adaptive modalities. The Paleolithic hunters initially traversed these spaces following the game. Post-Ice Age climate shifts prompted the development of militarized pastoralism, essentially warrior societies managing animal herds. This evolved into the pastoral nomadism associated with peoples such as the Mongols and the Kazakhs. Subsequently, expanding agricultural states like Russia and China established what Christian terms agrarian autocracies, highly centralized political structures necessary for resource mobilization across these challenging territories. The 20th century witnessed the Soviet command economy representing yet another organizational response to Inner Eurasian conditions. These adaptations transcend local significance. The survival strategies developed by Inner Eurasian peoples ultimately transformed global civilization. The Mongol Empire provided, perhaps, the most dramatic illustration of this phenomenon. In the early 13th century, the Mongols existed as feuding tribal confederations totaling perhaps 1 million individuals. By 1279, they commanded the largest contiguous territorial empire in recorded history, extending from Korea to Kiev, from Siberia to Vietnam. This transformation demands explanation beyond conventional military history. The Mongol homeland on the eastern steppe represents one of humanity's most challenging inhabited environments. Extended winters and abbreviated arid summers created selection pressures that produced extraordinary adaptive capabilities. Children acquired equestrian skills, and adults achieved universal archery proficiency, and social organization permitted military mobilization. Yet, individual prowess alone cannot explain Mongol success. Inner Eurasian geography provided decisive strategic advantages. The grassland corridors stretching from Mongolia to Hungary functioned as natural highways for mounted armies, while agricultural forces required complex supply chains and grain provisions for horses. Mongol mounts subsidized on steppe grasses. Warriors traveled with multiple horses, typically 3 to 5, enabling mobility that confounded conventional military expectations. Recent paleoclimatic research adds crucial context. The period from approximately 1211 to 1225 witnessed unusual precipitation increases and temperature elevation across Inner Eurasia. This climatic anomaly, corresponding to the regional expression of the medieval warm period, enhanced grass production, supporting larger horse populations and consequently more substantial military forces. Environmental conditions, as we can see, thus aligned with political ambition to facilitate unprecedented conquest. Mongol achievement extended beyond military conquest to systematic transformation. The Pax Mongolica established unprecedented transcontinental security, enabling travel from Baghdad to Beijing under unified political authority. This security revolutionized Eurasian exchange networks. Technologies, including gunpowder, printing, and navigational innovations, spread across civilizational boundaries. Pathogenic transmission followed similar routes. The 14th century Black Death reached Europe via Mongol-protected trade networks. The Mongols effectively inaugurated the first genuinely integrated world system, permanently altering civilizational trajectories. The Mongol Empire represents not an isolated phenomenon, but a recurring pattern of Inner Eurasian influence. Consider Russian history, from Muscovite principality in the 14th century to the world's most extensive territorial state by the early 20th century, encompassing 1/6 of terrestrial surface area. Russian expansion exploited Inner Eurasian characteristics. Unlike Western European maritime empires, Russia expanded continuously across contiguous territory. Siberian river systems, such as the Ob, Unaisi, and Lena, provided penetration routes into continental interiors. The absence of significant geographic obstacles eliminated natural boundaries to expansion. Crucially, Russia incorporated Mongol administrative techniques such as indirect governance through indigenous elites, religious pluralism, and integration of nomadic military capabilities. Chinese engagement with Inner Eurasia reveals parallel dynamics. Historically, the Great War demarcated the boundary between agricultural Chinese civilization and nomadic Inner Eurasia. The Qing dynasty, however, fundamentally restructured this relationship. The Qing rulers, themselves Manchus from the Inner Eurasian frontier, leveraged bicultural competence to establish dominion over both China proper and the Inner Eurasian territories of Mongolia, Xinjiang, and Tibet, essentially creating modern China's territorial configuration. Qing's success derived from sophisticated understanding of Inner Eurasian political culture. Rather than imposing agricultural uniformity, they administrated diverse populations through culturally appropriate frameworks. They presented themselves simultaneously as Confucian emperors to Han Chinese subjects, Buddhist rulers to Tibetans and Mongols, and Islamic patrons to Xinjiang's Muslims. This adaptive governance strategy exemplifies classic Inner Eurasian political flexibility. Inner Eurasia's relevance extends beyond historical curiosity. The region contains substantial reserves of hydrocarbons and minerals essential to contemporary technology. Current Silk Road initiatives essentially attempt to reconstitute the transcontinental connections that once positioned Inner Eurasia at global economic crossroads. More significantly, the Inner Eurasian framework illuminates historical patterns that traditional regional or national histories might overlook. It reveals how pastoral societies developed sophisticated political and military innovations that profoundly influenced civilizations existing today. The framework highlights how crucial historical developments often emerge from the interaction zones between agricultural and pastoral societies, rather than from either sphere in isolation. The concept also offers valuable insights into the relationship between environment and historical development without resorting to determinism. Inner Eurasian conditions created specific constraints and possibilities, yet human responses remained creative and unpredictable. The Mongols might have remained regional pastoralists. Instead, they constructed history's most extensive empire. Russia could have remained a simple European principality. Instead, it chose to become a transcontinental power. This analytical framework's value lies in its capacity to illuminate connections between geography, ecology, and human agency. It demonstrates humanity's persistent creativity in responding to environmental challenges, with innovations often emerging from unexpected regions through unexpected means. I invite you to reconsider world cartography through an Inner Eurasian perspective, beyond familiar national boundaries and regional designations. Observe the vast intermediate spaces, the grassland corridors, and desert passages that facilitated civilizational exchange, the challenging territories that nurtured peoples who periodically transformed global history. Recognize the world not as discrete, separate civilizations developing in isolation of one another, but as an integrated system where innovations and ideas circulated along networks we continue to discover and comprehend. Inner Eurasia represents neither a forgotten historical chapter nor an academic curiosity, rather an essential key to understanding our own interconnected world's formation. The insights derived from this vast, challenging creative space may prove increasingly relevant to contemporary global dynamics. I welcome your reflections on this framework. Have you encountered these landscapes directly, perhaps in Siberia or Harbin, the city that opened our discussion? Please share your thoughts below. Subscribe for frequent explorations of history, literature, and culture. Additional resources, including my blog and creative writing courses, are linked below. Thank you for following me on this intellectual journey across Eurasian grasslands and through historical time. Until we meet again, I'm Madeline Rose Jones, and this is Snowy Fictions.